Welcome everyone to the Wake Up Call channel. I've got to cover this story. If you need a good laugh, watch this video in regards to the propaganda being pushed by President-elect Joseph Biden, who's delivering remarks on extreme weather. Now, you may see underneath the videos time and time again now, they're putting in boxes to explain to you what's going on with the weather because, well, they don't want you to figure out what's really going on with the weather. They certainly don't want you to figure out that geoengineering is real. Now, over on my other channel, Hurting Humanity, if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. I even did a walkthrough video of the Oregon Trail where there's absolutely nothing on the screen mentioning anything to do with the climate initiative, but I cracked a few jokes about it, and they even managed to put up a blue box in there, which tells us that the algorithm is listening, and the algorithm is making sure that you follow Satan's plan and you don't wake up to the actual reality that we're living in and what his minions are doing here on Earth, which is manipulating the weather. So I broke this clip up because Biden gave a speech. And please make sure you listen to this. I cut it down as much as I could, and I broke it into two parts, and I have to show you all these clips because this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen with propaganda in my life. The climate propaganda is absolutely hilarious. So here's Biden talking about 112 degrees in Phoenix, 111 degrees in Nevada. Extreme heat is the #1 killer in America in regards to the weather all of a sudden. More than floods and tornadoes and hurricanes combined, extreme heat is. So, of course, Joe goes on to tell us what they're doing about it and how it affects our mental health. Climate affects our mental health. Not 5G, climate affects our mental health. Not the government's propaganda. Climate affects our mental health. A 90-degree day in June affects our mental health. Yeah, it's probably a little too healthy for people out there to get, some sun, even though nobody's getting real sun anymore these days with those chemtrails hanging up and lingering in the sky. But also listen to how he talks about his plan to stop the climate initiative by bringing in billions of dollars into FEMA. That's right. That's what their plan is with our tax money. They're going to build their FEMA prisons. If you're not familiar, FEMA is your modern day concentration camp that they're popping up all around these places where they destroy people's homes with weaponized weather. Then they tell you to come on down to the FEMA camp, get inoculated, stay for a while, and then it becomes your new permanent residence. Just ask the people in Hawaii, right? He even has the nerve to talk about the extreme heat being the #1 cause of death. Well, maybe he wants to talk about the directed energy weapons being potentially the #1 cause of death via weather, or the man-made earthquakes they start, like the one in Turkey that killed 50,000 people. Maybe we should start talking about those things. But no, it's the heat. He even goes on to say, I'm about to play it for you now, you got to know how to know, as his brother would say, which makes no sense. But help is here, that the government is here. But just be careful, folks, whatever you do. Don't step on that hot pavement.
I'm here to talk about how we're preparing and responding to the dangerous impacts of extreme weather and the climate crisis that's affecting people all around America, all around the country. Matter of fact, beyond around America. Summer has just started. Already, tens of millions of Americans are under heat warnings from record-shattering temperatures. Last month here in D.C., temperature 100 degrees. In Phoenix, Arizona, 112 degrees. In Las Vegas, 111 degrees. Above normal temperatures also are expected for much of the country in July, especially in central and eastern United States. Extreme heat, this is, I think, going to surprise a lot of people, not you all. But extreme heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States. More people die from extreme heat than floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes combined. Say that again, combined. More people die from heat than those 3 other major issues. And look, right now we're also tracking Hurricane Beryl, which is passing through the Caribbean. It's the earliest time ever a dangerous Category 5 hurricane has been recorded in American history. People impacted islands and communities are in our prayers, and we stand by to provide assistance to them. Look, extreme weather events drive home a point that I've been saying for so long. Ignoring climate change is deadly and dangerous and irresponsible. These climate-fueled extreme weather events don't just affect people's lives, they also cost money, they hurt the economy, and they have a significant negative psychological effect on people. FEMA is announcing excuse me, nearly $1 billion in grants for over 650 projects across the country that help communities protect against natural disasters, including extreme heat, storms, and flooding. These grants will also help advance my Justice 40 initiative to deliver at least 40% of overall benefits of clean transit, clean energy, and climate investment to devastated communities, to the poor communities always left behind. Fourth, the Environmental Protection Agency is releasing a new report showing the continued impacts of climate change and the health of the American people and on our environment. This report will help us prepare better, respond faster, and save more lives. And fifth, later this summer, my administration will convene the first ever White House Summer on Extreme Heat, bringing together state, local, tribal, and territorial leaders and international partners who are protecting communities and workers from extreme weather every single solitary day. You know, along with these actions, another reason why we're here today is to get the word out so folks know these resources are available to them and anyone who needs them. I was telling the group who briefed me earlier, my brother has an expression, you got to know how to know. We think everybody understands government. It's complicated. We want the American people to know help is here, how to get that help. Follow the guidance from local leaders and public safety officials. Stay indoors, somewhere cool if you're vulnerable. Be careful on hot pavement. Know the signs of heat stroke like headache, nausea, and dizziness.
So that right there is a perfect example of the time period we're living in, right? The government wants so much control of your life, and people are so dependent on the government. The government is telling the zombies out there that they're here for you. And they're here for you how? Well, they're here for you to give you great advice. Like if it's hot, drink water. If it's hot, stay inside. If it's hot, go down to your cooling center, which again is another place for them to herd you and round you up to. But most importantly, stay off the hot pavement. And as funny as it sounds, that just summarizes the time period we're living in, where there's people out there that look at this and they don't realize they're being talked to like they're 2 years old. And that's the society we're in. The adults are behaving like children. The children don't have a clue about anything that's going on because the adults that are raising them aren't teaching them anything because the adults themselves are children, behaving like children. And they're so weak and they're so pathetic that they hear something like that and they're like, that's really kind of Joe Biden. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. Instead of saying, why is this guy talking to us about 90-degree weather, telling us we need to lock ourselves inside, telling us that we need to go to cooling centers, telling us to drink water if it's hot, and then telling us to stay off of hot pavement. Aren't these things that you would say are common sense? Well, of course not in today's world, because this is exactly how communist society works. Everything is dependent on Big Brother. They want you to be dependent on them. They want you to run and cry to them if you burn your feet on hot pavement. And that's how pathetic this world has become. Now, I have to continue with another clip from Biden, and then I have to show you one of the funniest Bill Nye propaganda pieces I've ever seen. They go on to talk about how there's a new government website. That's right, a new government website, heat.gov, for life-changing info, where you could type in your zip code and they'll tell you how hot it is. Now, I don't know if anyone's told Joe Biden or the government that there is actually the Weather Channel where you could actually, put in your zip code or the weather app and find out what it is. Or you could just buy the old-fashioned way, a thermostat. You could have something, thermometer, figure out what the temperature is outside, right? But of course, we know that this is government propaganda because heat.gov is just going to tell you all sorts of things, not what the exact temperature is, but how it's going to affect you. So in other words, you're going to go there versus going to the Weather Channel where both will tell you it's 90 degrees, but the government website will give you warnings. Drink this much water, stay inside for this long, don't go outside for more than an hour. That's what the government website is going to do. But don't worry, they're here to help. They're not here to imprison you. They didn't just try to imprison you in your home a few years ago by locking you up, shutting your businesses down, forcing you to take something you didn't want, or telling you you lose your job, taking away free speech from people who are speaking against it. Don't worry about it. The goal isn't to lock you up in your home. That's not what the government is doing with corporations like Amazon, who are trying to make it so you don't even have to go to the pharmacy or go up the street anymore to get a cookie if you wanted to get one. They can just have it delivered right to your door. Don't leave. We're listening to you on the inside. Don't go outside because we don't have this stuff hooked up to the trees yet so that we can hear your conversations out in the woods. So just stay inside so we can listen and monitor you. So listen to this in regards to the cooling centers, the heat website, and of course, he goes on to talk about climate deniers, people like, me and you, and how stupid we are. He says there's stupid people with bad intentions, right? We're living in a hole because we figured out a long time ago, going back to the 50s, when the government was talking about weaponizing weather, right? When Lyndon B. Johnson, John F. Kennedy, back then they said we're working on being able to control the weather control, right? They've said that openly.
We shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control.
It lays the predicate foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
So if they've said that openly, well, we know almost, 70 years ago, they were working on it. I'm pretty sure now we know why they were working on it. Of course, to go after their own civilians and round them up like cattle. But if you question it, you're stupid. Coming from the guy who's playing the role on television of being the stupidest person alive, calling everybody out there who's actually intelligent stupid. Pretty funny, right?
We launched a new website, heat.gov. Let me say it again, heat.gov, that shares life-saving information and links a new heat risk tool to help communities forecast extreme heat. Just enter your zip code and see the heat forecast not only generally, but in your community where you're living. And we'll get back to exactly what the heat forecast for your neighborhood is. That's not all. My American Rescue Plan is helping states and cities promote energy efficiency, reduce the impacts from flooding, and open cooling centers. People have to know where to go, where they can go in their neighborhood. It's just not automatic. Unfortunately, my predecessor and the MAGA Republicans in Congress are trying to undo all this progress. They still deny climate change even exists. They deny climate change even exists. They must be living in a hole somewhere at the expense of health and safety of their own constituents. They deny it exists. Every single congressional Republican voted against the investments which created these jobs and combat climate change. Many of them are trying to repeal those climate provisions and kill those jobs. I quite frankly think it's not only outrageous, it's really stupid. Everyone who willfully denies the impacts of climate change is condemning the American people to a dangerous future, and either is really, really dumb or has some other motive of that. How can you deny there's climate change, for God's sake?
So you can't make it up. You're being called stupid if you deny climate change. And of course, that's all it takes is minimal propaganda like that for the people out there who feel empowered listening to just agree with the president, because it's too crazy for them to think that the government would turn on its own people. Now, these are the same people who listen to the fake history they've been taught. They've heard about the Roman Empire and all these empires that have crumbled over time and the amount of control they've wanted over their civilians. There's no way that they would want that now. We've set up a republic, folks. You vote for these people. They come and they go, right? Oh, wait a minute. They don't come and they go. This isn't a republic. These people stay in power for 50, 60 years. Just look at Chuck Schumer and all these scumbags in Congress who act like this is a republic and your vote actually counts. Of course, that's not the truth, because they don't want you to ever get the illusion that this is nothing more than a dictatorship where they change the face every 4 to 8 years. It's the same as this is a tyranny. This is the left and right working together. And this right here I'm about to show you, I have to put this in, so please make sure you watch it if you're still listening. This made me laugh so hard. Bill Nye, they always roll Bill Nye out, the fake science guy. They picked Bill Nye because the adults now grew up on Bill Nye because they forced it into the public schools in the 90s and the 80s. They forced Bill Nye, and I think the 90s more so, and the early 2000s. Bill Nye was forced into the schools, into the classrooms, so the kids would watch. It would be a great day for the kids, right? In their prison institution in the school, when you could watch a movie in class or a TV show in class, they would be thrilled. It would be like getting ice cream, because they don't have to listen to the monotone teacher tell them about fake history. So they've all grown up on Nye. They roll Nye out here. Listen to Bill Nye talk about how, you're the ones responsible for the climate problem, okay? And it's the most extreme thing we've ever seen, and we can't have climate deniers. And also, by the way, there's two things we can do to change it. Word of mouth, which means propaganda, and spreading that propaganda. And number two, your vote, right? So you go vote for change, which of course means nothing because your vote doesn't count. But more importantly, just repeat government propaganda for the government. And that's really what Bill goes on to say is the biggest problem they're facing, is not enough people are repeating the propaganda. So you should feel guilty about it and go and repeat the propaganda. Look at this. This is absolutely hilarious.
Life-threatening heat across the country. More than 127 million Americans are on alert.
And it's just the beginning of what will be a sweltering stretch.
Even right now, while we're standing in the shade, it's hard to find somewhere comfortable to get away from all of the heat.
Yeah, Scott, it is a scorcher once again. I-95 bakes today. We're talking 4 out of 4 on the scale that we use to measure extreme heat.
Some of the coverage across the country of the scorching summer heat hitting the nation. For more on what's driving the extreme weather and whether the new normal is with us now, I'm joined by science educator Bill Nye. Good morning, Bill. It's so great to have you with us this morning. There are very few people watching us this morning who aren't experiencing sweltering heat. The same is happening around the world, flooding, wildfires. Give us your read on that. Is this the new normal?
It's the beginning of the new normal, with respect. So the latest research is that there's not a turning point or a tipping point or a knee in the curve. It's just going to get hotter and hotter and worse and more extreme. So this is a taste of the normal of the future, unless we, humankind, get to work and address it.
And let's talk about that. Our Ginger Z talks about climate change a lot, global warming. What do we need to do right now, in your view?
Well, there's two things, everybody. I say this all the time. The first thing is talk about climate change. If we were talking with our families and friends and people we vote for about climate change, we'd be much more inclined to do something about it. And then the other thing I always say is vote. So we have a situation right now here in the United States where one side, one political party isn't acknowledging the problem, let alone coming up with a plan to do something about it. Furthermore, the other side is kowtowing, is doing what the fossil fuel industry wants to do. And as Upton Sinclair said, it's hard for a man to change his mind when his income depends on not changing his mind. So everybody, we have a situation now where El Nino is giving way to La Nina, where there's a cooling in the Pacific Ocean, which strangely enough leads to more hurricanes because there's less vertical shear, as we say, in the Atlantic. And furthermore, the Atlantic is especially warm. Now, all this heat that we've trapped in the atmosphere has worked its way into the ocean. So we have a situation where we're going to have this extreme heat and these crazy heat domes, these high-pressure systems that don't move, and there are no clouds to reflect sunlight into space. They just get hotter and hotter. And then we're having these extreme weather events, big rain and wind coming in from the southeast to North America. So this is everything going the wrong way at once. So what we have to do, everybody, is stop putting carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere.
If you meet with people who don't believe in climate change, don't believe in global warming, and there are a lot of them, what do you say to them? What do you say to them to convince them?
So if I could convince people in one sitting, that would be fabulous, but that has proven quite difficult. I tell everybody it takes years where people see the evidence, and the problem we have in climate change is we don't have a 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor. It's slow motion. So everybody that I speak with acknowledges that the climate is changing. Just the nudge that we work on, and people on my side of this, is pointing out that humans are causing it.
So again, folks, you need to repeat it, because if you tell a lie long enough and a big enough lie long enough, well, it becomes truth. And that's what the government's doing. But he openly admits in that clip everything I tell you about repetition. The reason that, not enough people know about it is there hasn't been enough time, because they haven't been pumping the repetition of this long enough. But they are doing it right now. So every single day, if you hear it's the hottest it's ever been over and over and over again, it suddenly becomes the truth in your mind. Because you just keep hearing it. You don't even question what you're saying. You just repeat it. That's how a lot of sheeple exist in our society today. Don't you run into these people? They just repeat what they hear on TV without even questioning it. And then they yell at you for questioning the news because they take the news as fact. They don't realize that the news is fiction. It's there to condition and control you, right? So he tells you flat out that, well, oh, we need time. We need time to pump the propaganda into you, right? It reminds me of that old clip. They tell a friend, and they tell a friend, and so on.
Well, you know how these things start. One guy tells another guy something. He tells two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on.
Because that's exactly how mind control works. And that is how this whole thing is going to play out with the climate agenda. The more they push it, the more they talk about it, the more they go on TV and the president's rolled out and they're telling you right to your face that this is the most extreme problem that we have, the most quintessential threat to humanity is climate change. Well, there's some truth to it though, right? There is truth to it because the government is manipulating the weather and killing people and ruining their lives by creating pop-up tornadoes and all sorts of things using HAARP and weather modification. But the truth of the matter is geoengineering is real. Climate change is not. The reason that they tell you this stuff is happening from pipe towers and carbon emissions from factories is not the actual reason. That's why they actually are okay with themselves flying around on private jets, because it's all make-believe. It's make-believe. They're hitting you with weaponized weather, and they want you to not be suspicious of it by calling it climate change, and then ultimately using that whole notion of climate change to begin enslaving yourself inside your home. That's how it's done. And that's why that blue box pops up on the bottom, to make sure you don't figure it out. So I had to cover those clips because to me it was one of the funnier things I've seen in a long time. Again, folks, you're stupid and you're living under a rock if you don't believe government propaganda and government lies. And your job is to repeat what you hear on the TV because a fake scientist who's an actor shows up with a fake lab coat on that he got at the Halloween costume store and tells you that you need to believe in it. Just like a couple years ago when these same fake doctors were telling you that you should inject yourself with poison, and then we saw these people get sick and die. But the masses out there still don't want to believe that's the reason for it, again, because they have narcissist syndrome and actually believe that these actors on television are real doctors and real people who are trying to help them. And we're all the bad guys for actually spewing the truth, getting silenced for doing it, which is just gives more credence to all the stuff that we say. The more often we get silenced, the more we get fact check boxes. It should get people to go, what? Why do they care so much about this? If these people are so crazy, why do they care so much? Because they know their lies suck. And they know the stuff that they're spewing, when it's pointed out and people actually realize what it is, can get them caught. And they don't want to get caught. That's what it's about. Because if they do, and the civilians figure it out, the civilians could stop it from going any further than it's already going. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen, because the propaganda machine seems to be working. And all you got to do is look around you to see that for a fact, because these people are walking around. And like I said, you've probably walked into people where it is the hottest it's ever been. And it's like 85 where you are, 95 where you are. Is it? It's never been 95? Well, they don't remember the 5Gs and all the chemicals getting dumped on them. They don't remember it was 95 last year and the year before and 15 years ago. It's called a heat wave. It's called summer, right? They don't want you to remember that. Just like when the winter rolls around, they'll tell you it's the most disastrous winter we've ever had, and that this is the craziest winter, the most blizzards ever, and they'll just keep doing it, and everybody will just keep going along with it because they don't have actual common sense, and their brains are just on a wavelength that is not functioning. They are literally going through the motions. I always say they are just on autopilot. That's what most people are. But when you point it out and you look at it, it's pretty hilarious when you watch this stuff and you're awake. Sometimes as frustrating as it is to listen to how these people talk and then to actually think that people out there believe this, and they listen to them call people like us stupid, and then they go, help is here, the government's here, don't step on hot pavement. We've taken $1 billion of your tax money and given it to FEMA to set up. And then the Congress like, that's so great. So if I have a hurricane, FEMA's going to show up in my town. Yeah, ask the people in Hawaii. They don't hear them talking about that on the news anymore in Lahaina, do you? Oh, are their homes rebuilt by the government? Oh, no. So what did they? Oh, well, the government was nice enough to put up little small, almost like out of a dystopian reality, little cubicle houses for them. Little 700 square feet tiny homes that they've gotten you used to with all these shows out there that are pumping tiny homes into your head. Oh yeah, it's all wonderful. They should be happy that the government's done that for them. But if they only knew it was the government who burned their homes to the ground, right? And then they're going to set these FEMA camps up all around these flood zones. And guess what? Once you're in the FEMA camp, you're going to have to follow all the rules, including putting nanotechnology inside your body. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all well. Share this video, and God bless all of you as always and your families.